Call the meeting to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Commissioner Shaw,
Here.
Commissioner Wire,
Here.
Commissioner Corbin,
Here.
Commissioner Digital,
Here.
Mayor Lindsey.
Here. You have before you the agenda for this evening.
Motion to approve the agenda as presented. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Seeing no appearances or acknowledgements, is there anything anyone wants removed from the consent calendar?
Motion to approve the consent calendar. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Seeing no unfinished business under new business. First thing is a public hearing for the temporary retail on-off sale malt beverage license for the Greater Madison Area Chamber of Commerce for the downtown in Madtown events this summer. Jameson, any comments?
This is the regular concert series. The Chamber's done an excellent job with the last few years, and they are getting their annual license for malt beverage. Malt beverage sales.
Anyone from the public, any comments? Okay, seeing none. Number two, approve the temporary retail on-off sale malt beverage license for the Greater Madison Area Chamber of Commerce downtown in Madtown events this summer.
I did speak with Chief Meyer too, and he had no issues with any of the liquor license presented tonight, so I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number three, public hearing for the transfer of the retail on sale liquor license from LC 43 LLC to GLSC Holdings LLC. Any comments?
GLSC Holdings is a company that owns a couple other bars within the South Dakota region. We have not heard any comments from this liquor license transfer either, as it's been noted publicly, and have no other comments.
Okay. Anyone from the audience? Okay, then moving on to number four, approve the transfer of the retail on sale liquor license from LC 43 LLC to GLSC Holdings LLC.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number five, approve first reading of ordinance number 1658. Amend snow removal ordinances. And Jameson, do you want to address that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First reading of the ordinance is a lot of cleanup language within the snow ordinance, which is found in chapter 36. There's some things that disagree with itself. For example, one area referred to snow being needing to be removed within 12 hours of the fall, and the other said 48 hours. This makes it consistent 24 hours as a requirement to remove snow from sidewalks following a snowfall. It also clarified the process for parking vehicles on emergency snow routes and during snow emergencies that are declared, and sets in place the ability to place fines as necessary. Not a lot of significant changes, but some cleanup language which is necessary. And this is just the first reading, and we recommend approval.
Questions, comments?
Why was there 48? Why the difference?
I don't have a good answer for that. I'm guessing that there was just ordinances that were passed over time and ended up having this conflict within itself that was unbeknownst to them when they were passed.
100%.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay, and again, this is first reading. So if there are no other comments, then do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve first reading of ordinance 1658, amends snow removal ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 6, authorize the mayor to sign change order number 5 with Winter Contracting on the Northwest 9th Street, Union Avenue reconstruction project, which started today. Jameson, you have something to
Sure.
add?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this change order is for net increase of $38,476.50. It actually has a lot more to it than that. It's a pretty relatively small increase, but there's large deducts and large additions due to a couple different changes to the project. And I'll refer to Ryan and Wes to go to details.
Okay, I can elaborate on it here, so. This change order is 2 parts, one on the utilities and then the other on the roadway section. So, and it all pertains to phase 2 of the project. Also, the first part with the utilities. Banner performed some value engineering on the design and identified where the city could increase some operational, parts of the project and also save some money on the project. And primarily the money savings would be on the storm sewer. So what we have found by realigning some of the utilities and moving them within the street and the storm sewer underneath the curb and gutter, we're able to eliminate junction boxes out in the street. So by doing that, there's a savings in not having a contractor install these junction boxes. And that resulted in a savings of around maybe $75,000. So with that savings, it is offset by an alternative roadway section that we would recommend. So going through phase 1 of the project, there was a lot of oversized rock used due to the unstable grade that we came across in phase 1. Now, some of that was due to the late season work that was performed, but even prior to that, the contractor did have to use a fair amount of stabilization material to reinforce that subgrade. So in phase 2, after reviewing the geotech report, we're likely going to run into some of the similar material and maybe even some poorer material that is going to require some type of reinforcement. So the options would be to move forward with conventional type of alternative roadway section as it was intentionally designed, or originally designed, but we've used up that quantity of oversized rock in the first phase of the project. So everything from here moving forward would be in addition to that contract. So an alternative to that would be to use a section that we're proposing is a cement treated subgrade. So it'd be using Portland powder to reinforce that subgrade and increase the strength of the clay material to build the road upon. Now that's an additional price to the contract. So the net on this change order would be an increase of $38,476.50.
And now is this on Union or Union and 9th Street both?
It would include 9th from Chicago to Josephine and then Union from 9th north to the end.
Okay. So this covers quite a section of that roadway then.
It'd be the remainder of the project. We have seen this does generally, depending on weather conditions. If you are in a wet weather condition, you're able to move forward with the cement treated subgrade faster than you would be able to move forward with trying to prepare a subgrade using conventional methods such as verify, recompact, driving material. Right now, we're not dealing with the rain, but again, we're looking at an alternative section that's going to provide some benefit. Hopefully, facilitate construction to allow it to move a little quicker throughout the summer.
And that is one of our heavily traveled streets in town. With both schools on the way to DSU, so.
What's the projected finish date on that section of road, do we know?
By the school. So the contractual completion date is west of Josephine, August 11th. We haven't gotten any indication from the contractor that that's going to be an issue.
When the schools start?
Like the 21st, 22nd. I haven't looked that far ahead.
A little cushion there, you know, you don't even think about it.
We think that the symmetry at sub base would help expedite the project as well. It wouldn't be as much. You know, if we do run into situations where we have dig outs, those take a long time. You gotta dig them out and get back that material and proof roll and hopefully this will cut out some of that.
Yeah, look how long it took us on 8th Street. there.
Exactly, that's a prime example.
East of Egan, seemed like it took forever. In that area there, and that street's not heavily traveled like 9th Street is.
Right.
So we'd be getting a better subgrade product. Base.
Yeah, I mean, I feel pretty comfortable saying that I'm gonna get a very good sub base using this method. We've used it a number of times in the past. City of Madison hasn't used it, I don't believe, not to my knowledge, right? So. But there's other areas that use it, becoming more popular around, the Sioux Falls and metro area. Brookings has used it, I know Vermillion uses it on quite a few of their roadways.
Yeah, I think Coleman used it, like Preston has it. Like you said, Madison hasn't used it before, so obviously I've been reaching out and trying to expand my knowledge on it, and we've reached out to Geotech and who we trust, and they definitely recommend it. Say it's a really good section.
So now this wouldn't require fabric on top of that, would it?
Right.
We're not using fabric. Really?
No, it would be if we weren't making the switch.
Okay.
How are we gonna control that powder drift? What are,
So there's a procedure on how to apply this cement. They only have so long before they need to start working that material, and I don't know if I could recite the actual spec. I think it's maybe they've got 45 minutes after they've placed the material on the ground to work it in, and then have to have that material compacted within the first 90 minutes, I believe. So there is some concern there. I understand that with that Portland powder blowing. Generally, I don't see a lot of issue with that. There's going to be some dust. There will be some dust while they're incorporating that into the subgrade. I haven't had many complaints about it, but then again, I haven't seen it set on the grade for more than 30 minutes. They have a distributor truck, they pull out a run, and they've got a reclaimer right behind that, and that's getting reclaimed in, and then distributor truck will then move over and they'll pull out another pass for the reclaimer. Let's say it sits on the grade for no more than 45 minutes.
that'd be if we decide to go this route, whatever we can do to work that powder, I guess, into the ground and control the drift of it, so it's not getting on homes, yards, cars, best we can.
And that distributor, when it lays it down, that distributor's, dropping it straight down on the grade. There's usually not a big plume of powder that you're seeing in the air. There is some, but nothing that we've received a lot of complaints about.
I just didn't know if we waited for under 10-mile-an-hour wind or even took that into account.
What's it like when you have to go back in and open that street up for utility repair or something?
I'd suggest get the utilities in before you do soil cement. Because when you have
Down
to
the
go,
road, when you have to have a repair.
so you will have to potentially use a frost tooth to dig through it, an excavator to dig through it too. I mean, it gets hard. It's a low strength concrete.
We just won't have any leaks. We'll be fine.
That's right.
You know what the
Within a 100 year
depth is?
product,
You know what the depth is that they work it in, is it,
12 inches.
oh, it's 12 inches
Yeah.
deep, okay.
Yeah, and that varies from 6-inch depths all the way to 18-inch depths, but commonly, 12 inches is inadequate.
Okay.
You might have touched on a little bit, but can you clarify or reiterate the need for this change, or what's the issue with keeping the current design?
If the current design stayed the same, like Ryan said, there's likely gonna be some dig outs. And we're likely gonna incur additional costs with using an oversized sub-base material, which we've used that quantity that was in the bid. So everything above that quantity now would be a change order onto the project to increase that price. So I guess I would say at the end of the day, it's likely that it's probably gonna be a similar cost, whether you use a sub-base material or use a soil cement, called that. But we believe the cement treated base is gonna be a better product. Sure. And hopefully gonna be able to move through the project quicker with that.
So that option would be faster as well.
Yes. You know, in past experience, I mean, it's a much faster operation.
I think it's like 3 years to get roads done anymore.
I know we've talked about this in the past, but when we're bidding these projects, I mean, we've done bore samples,
Mhm.
do they not take into account these opportunity, I don't know, these possibilities that we could have to rebuild the base
Yeah,
and how we're,
I think there was 10 soil borings done in November of 2020, and those all identified that there were poor soil conditions and poor subbase. It was recommended that we use a subbase reinforcement, and maybe even removing and replacing some of that material was suitable. So Houston Engineering, the initial designer, did have a quantity of that oversized aggregate in it, but as Weston mentioned, we've already used it all up. You know, I think they maybe not put enough quantity in.
I think this is a good stretcher to try this approach out. Thank you.
Ryan, do you see if this works? And do we continue to bid it that way then, and move to this powder-based concrete?
Depends, I mean, this isn't a situation you'd use it every place, I mean, it just wouldn't, I think it'd be cost prohibitive to do that, but where you have your poor sub-base material, I think it's definitely an option we can look at.
To Jeremiah's question on what happens for future utility issues that we need to dig into that, are we able to note this in GIS so that we know this section street has this, that section doesn't? Especially if we start using it sometimes, but not always in the future.
Yeah, we sure will.
That's a good idea.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? If not, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the change order, winter contracting.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay, number 7, update on the 2023 infrastructure improvement project.
I'll start with this, Ryan, and you can jump in whenever you need or whenever you want to add to it. We'll start with what you'll refer to as the rural development project. Phase 1A would be in the northwest part of town, kind of bound by 2nd Street or Highway 34 and 5th Street. Phase 1A, there's been an ongoing punch list and list of warranty items that the contractor is obligated to complete. We have done a walkthrough this spring with that contractor. We may have seen paint lines out on that project if you've driven by there. And those are areas that we've identified on the punch list, on the warranty list. And those are items that we're asking the contractors to address. They are focused on completing the phase 1B work right now, and they are using their resources on that project. But they have, indicated to us that they're going to begin some work in 1A as soon as this week and into next. As far as the phase 1B project, that'd be in the northwest part of town, generally between 5th Street and 9th Street. And phase 1B has benefited from the good weather. They've been able to remove the millings, their temporary surfacing off the roadways. They've been able to perform their grading work necessary to start the asphalt. And the asphalt work did begin last week. They're putting in a bottom lift to asphalt. So that should help with some travel throughout the area. There still is a couple of cutouts and drop-offs. One that I've noticed that gets traveled fairly often is on Liberty and 8th. And that one's scheduled to get a bottom lift put in. It was for today, but I don't believe they're gonna make it there today. We'll see if they still ran trucks late. But if not today, it'll be tomorrow. And once they do put that bottom lift asphalt in, they've got another crew that's gonna work on raising structures, and then they'll finish the top with the asphalt. They've had a concrete contractor completing the curb and gutter, which that's mostly all completed. There are a few spots there where they have to, take out small sections and do repairs. They do have a sidewalk crew and a driveway crew that's been working pretty diligently, putting the sidewalk back and replacing the driveways as well. And they'll continue to do that. They're gonna try to, stay ahead of the asphalt paving operations. But once that top lift goes on, they may have to stay off that for a day or two. That way they're not scarring that up. And then we've been talking with the contractor about boulevard restoration. We are just outside of the seating window. The seating window would be June 1st. So the contractor is talking with his sub, trying to determine what options they have for performing that seating and doing the boulevard restoration. At a minimum, they would have to regrade that boulevard and stabilize it at least. Planting of the vegetation, whether they decide to do that, that would be on them with it being outside of the seating window. And we're kind of waiting on that decision from the contractor.
So now if they waited on that, does that mean that they would come in and put it in the fall? Come back and do that in the fall?
Yeah, they'd have to do it, so that seating window would open back up August 1st.
Okay.
After they do complete the asphalt and complete the concrete work, we'll perform a substantial walkthrough. So we'll grant the substantial completion if they've completed all the work, generate a punch list, and then they would be expected to complete the punch list within a reasonable amount of time. Anything to add on that, Ryan?
No, I guess, I've had a lot of communication with landowners regarding the boulevard restoration and seeding, and a lot of questions on if they need to do it themselves, and I've been telling folks that no, you don't, and this will be taken care of, and so I guess that's our main message to the public, is that these things are on their list of things to do, and will be completed.
In phase 2, probably it's seen there was a lot of boulevard restoration work that happened over the past week. The seeding contractor did come in and they restored the boulevards, or finished grading out the boulevards on Prairie, on 9th Street, and then on 8th Street as well. And then there was some miscellaneous intersections on Summit, and a couple other reseeding areas that they had to take care of. I did notice, so there was, due to the heavy rain last week on Wednesday, Thursday, maybe, there was a lot of erosion that took place down at 4th and Prairie. So there's some rework that needs to take place at that location. And the contractor did, I was told, did come today and did a little bit of cleanup work, but there'll be some follow-up work with the reseeding that'll have to be done as well. They continue to work on the punch list that they were given. There still is some miscellaneous items that we're discussing with the contractor. There are a few items that are disputed by the contractor right now. So we're gonna continue those conversations on what constitutes for corrective action and what does not. And I did talk to Halmy Inc., the contractor. They are anticipating that they'll complete the items that they're not disputing. They'll have those completed by June 15th. Any questions on the rural development projects?
So they're gonna dispute it, how long do we have to wait for them to complete those pieces?
So contractually, they have, so we would have to give them a response. If they are disputing it, we would have to give them a response. And that response could be, acceptance of that dispute, rejection of that, or even partial acceptance, or some other type of negotiation. And I think that's the discussion right now, is giving a response on, acknowledging that they're disputing that. where do we want to take that next step?
And I'll have to dig in to look at the exact timelines. Okay. I didn't look at that.
And is one of the disputes in that, dealing with the unevenness between the new pour and the old concrete
On the sidewalk.
on the sidewalk, which in the interim and in the meantime, until that's resolved, becomes a tripping hazard. And so, that's one of the things and one of the areas that I have a concern with. And, of course, I disputed the thought was, well, we poured ours and that and yours raised. Well, the sidewalk's been there for however many years and that, and the chances of it raising in relationship to a new one is pretty slim. It's more likely the new one will. So,
And there's a dispute also with just cracking of any sidewalk or driveways. We'll continue to work through that and get some guidance from David, I imagine.
I'll look into that. We'll talk soon.
The other project or infrastructure project that we'd like to discuss is the Northwest 9th Street project in Union Avenue reconstruction. Phase one of that project, so where it was left last year was it was temporarily surfaced or left as just base course and utilized that way. The contractor came in the spring here and they began with curb and gutter. They placed all the curb and gutter. Following that, asphalt contractor mobilized in, and over the past 2 weeks, they've installed the asphalt in that first phase of the project. Right now, the company doing the concrete has been working on the sidewalk. They'll also be finishing the driveways and get to a point where they've finished all the work in the phase one project by June 15th. They have moved into phase two of the project starting today. People up on Northwest 9th Street have figured that out, that they're in the heat of construction now. We have made it a point to the contractor to provide one point of access, or at least one point of access to all the residents that are north of 9th Street. Now, that access may have to be made via Josephine or Union by using an alternate route, which would be through an alley and potentially through a parking lot for the apartments up in that area. Also, there's, trailer court development up in that area as well, that has a loop. It's been relayed to the contractor to provide access to one or the other driveway or access point to that area. And at the end of the day today, I had asked the contractor to restore all the access for each approach and then pick up any asphalt rubble off the roadway. I don't believe they'll complete all the removals today. They'll likely continue that tomorrow. And the underground contractor will begin likely on Wednesday, but they will start on Josephine. And so that intersection will be closed down on Josephine. So there will be an alternate access, which will have to come through Union. And as that project progresses, they will continue to move over to Union and they'll be taking out that intersection. So there'll have to be an alternate access on Union as well. But at that time, we'd anticipate Josephine will be open for traffic.
I did have a question from the post office today in that on the area between Josephine and the bridge. And, whether or not that would be open for mail delivery and pickup and that, or if the residents should be looking at doing something alternatively with the post office. So, don't need an answer now, just something to look at.
In sidewalk as well, I think that should be stated too. Sidewalk will remain in place until it's necessary to remove it. So if there's utilities that require removal of the sidewalk, they'll remove that before they put in the utility. But other than that, trying to maintain that sidewalk as long as we can.
I'll touch base with Postmaster.
Yeah.
Postmaster.
Sounds good.
And then in regards to schedule, we touched on that a little bit. So phase two of the work The contractual completion date west of Josephine is August 11th. And the contractual completion date east of Josephine is September 15th. Now, via this change order with the modifications to the utilities and the roadway, there is a modification to those dates of 8 days. And that hasn't been updated in this specific project flyer here. So the next project flyer will have the updated dates.
Maybe the other project I should mention is, we get out by the water tower, the logos are now on the water tower and look pretty good, so.
Do they have a date that they may be lifting the tower?
It's mid-July, I don't remember the exact date.
Anything else? Questions or comments?
Thanks for the update.
Absolutely.
Very good, thank you, gentlemen. Okay. And me. Update number 8 is an update on our electrical system.
Well, I hope everybody's had a chance to review the memorandum and trying to give us a little feedback and some thoughts and ideas. Just give you kind of a little background on it. We did get served official notice from East River. That 2 major components on the 10-year study, 10-year plan. Some of the stuff at the very tail of it's gonna have to get moved substantially forward, and it's a very large dollar amount. That's kind of on this example here, the executive summary highlighted in yellow. You can see those dollar amounts. With the shift of those moving forward and up and not being able to delay the green substation, that's gonna add some substantial cost here in the next 2 years, because it's gonna have to be completed by the fall of 2025 in order to facilitate East River's voltage increase. So basically, in summary, that to support that, I feel kind of the best direction for the commission and a good tool for you would be to move ahead with that rate study and evaluation at this time. That's pretty much a general summary on that. I do have some questions, but I want to give you time to ask me any questions that I can try and answer for you before we go into those.
What does it look like in that in terms of being able to get the materials we need, such as the transformers and the upgraded equipment?
We'll find out more because we're out for bid right now on that green substation. I know that's gonna get opened up Wednesday. So hopefully then we'll be able to see what that material lead time is gonna look like. But we could be up against it as far as getting the accommodations made and everything installed by the time the deadline's here. We'll have to work with East River if that's gonna be an issue, so.
How much do we budget for the rate study?
I believe it's 50.
Is that what it's coming in at, or?
Well, I want to kind of get feedback and talk to vendors on
Yeah, that number was
what they specialize in, so I'm hoping 50 will be close or over would be my hopes. I haven't evaluated rate study cost in probably a year and a half now, so.
It was based on, for budgetary purposes, what we had heard from estimates from one of the companies that could do rate studies, so it's been 8 months now, I suppose, but we believe that should be in the ballpark.
Questions or comments?
Nate, maybe do you want to go through some of the questions that you had in the memo?
Absolutely. No, I think it's important. Like I say, I view this as a very valuable tool for the governing body. Basically, you're gonna write the plan out, and you're gonna project revenues and expenses over the course of the next 5 years. And with very accurate inputted information, it becomes a very valuable tool for the governing body to measure performance and where we're at financially. It's very important for your financial health. So these questions, I kind of want to get a read from the commission on what's important to them. And it'll go into what questions we ask the vendors when we're evaluating them as far as what their depth of service is in specific areas. So that's why I want to ask these questions. So I'll kind of move into them. Is there a rate class you would like to see special considerations for? Like your residential or industrial, small commercial, large commercial. Right now you currently have 2 or 3 rate classes, 3 rate classes. This rate study could come back and recommend you need 4 rate classes. Is there a certain rate class or a member of the community that you kind of want to take under your wing and show special considerations for?
Do we have a specific rate for electric heat? For residential? Or is it after you use so much power, it's a declining block?
It's a decline.
There's a part of town that doesn't have access to the natural gas, so I've always kind of been mindful of those people.
Any other thoughts on that question?
Jeremiah, do you recall how we set up the current? Did we have any direction, I guess, with the current?
If the
Rate.
current rate study was before me,
Oh.
Roy.
And back during that time period and that, we had an electric advisory board made up from different people from the industry here in town. And so a lot of the decisions in that came from that advisory board. And that advisory board has not been in operation since I was mayor before. So.
There are notes from that, I mean. Did we take into account any of those classes, or did we have any direction there from that study?
I can't tell you exactly what the study shows, but I have a file of the meetings and that we had when I was mayor before, you know, and in there, you know, it was, you know, the consensus of the group, because there were people on there from, you know, East River and other entities and that, you know, that understood electricity. But, during the time that the 3 years I was out, I don't have anything that shows that anybody met at all, so I don't know. But I think it's always nice.
dangerous to trust my memory. Very dangerous, but just prior to Mayor Lindsay's first term, I'm fairly confident that we underwent a fairly substantial overhaul of how we charged our electric rates and what those electric rates were. And I believe that was the genesis of the committee. I know that Jeff Heinemeyer was very active on or with that committee. I don't remember the other members, but I know that they helped us overhaul, maybe that's in a little bit extreme word, but reorganize how we handle our electric charges. That was the purpose of that committee. And that's why it hasn't been for years. It was more of an ad hoc committee. It wasn't a standing committee. It wasn't really recognized as a permanent committee or board.
So dissolved, or
No, I doubt that it
No,
actually
it's
did
just-
officially dissolve.
so is it something we need to reinstitute or?
It was fully active during the 6 years I was mayor before. And then I have no records of anything since then till now.
We changed it to more of a utility advisory board. One of their last meetings, they didn't get a quorum and then they just didn't meet again. I mean, kind of ran out of things to talk about. They're just meeting for the sake of meeting. Because we weren't doing a lot with utility rates. And they've been relatively stable for quite a while now. I mean, that's something people really got fired up about, so.
I do remember that when I was mayor before and that, we'd get together, we'd go over things and that. We'd take a look at what our costs were and what our anticipations were for the budget, and then come up with, where we felt the rate should go for the next year. And in some of those years, and that there was zero increases in rates. And so I do have the files from when I was mayor before are in my office and that, if you'd like to look at them, you're more than welcome to.
I have our last rate study, 2013.
That was when I came on as mayor before. So that, to my knowledge, would be the last one.
It sounds like there's maybe some question over whether that group needed to continue to meet, whether they were still health insurance purpose or not. I would say we've got a new utility director in place, and with the completion of a new rate study, we'll probably get some answers as to whether there's a need for that group to be resurrected or not. At that time, we can have a discussion.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I guess back to the first question there, the special considerations, I don't really have any. Special considerations for any of the rate classes. I think, exactly what the rate study is gonna do is outline. Fair and equity across all of our rate structures, and that's the most important thing in my opinion.
I agree.
I agree with that also.
So true cost of service to rate class is important to the commission.
Cost of service, definitely.
Any more on that, or you want to move to number 2? And I think I kind of picked up some answers to this.
I think number 2 is ready.
Number 2's ready. How important is rate design alignment with current industry trends to the commission? There's a lot of different ways they make up rates now. And there's ways that it became antiquated due to new technology, and there's all kinds of stuff that can go into it. I guess as far as industry trends, part of it would be evaluating what our current rates look like and if they're matching up to industry trends. How important is it to be normalized as having your rates be concurrent with what's happening in the industry? Is that important?
And I guess to me, it's more important than that as to how it fits the needs of, for the citizens and the industry and that is not necessarily, national trends or statewide trends, how does it fit the usage for the industries and the people that we have, citizens of Madison?
I think we gotta pay attention to the competitiveness where we sit. Around the state as well. I don't think. We base our rates off of that, but we need to take it into account where we stand with our peers.
Yeah, I guess I'd just add to that, I think we always need to watch industry trends. I think, specifically, electric vehicles in this space, whether we have a rate for that, whether we allow them to be on load management, that type of thing, we definitely need to be prepared for that.
So you'd like to see something outlined as far as you'd like to see at least a little planning done ahead of anything that might be specialized as far as EVs or, possibly distributed generation, anything along them lines you'd like to see rates for and some establishing there too.
We're already seeing more EVs around, and so it's definitely something that's going to be here.
Kelly said the load management, anything we can do to utilize, promote. I mean, that's why it exists, to help offset rates and improve.
So evaluate the effectiveness of load management and the programs.
I'd like to see that, yes.
Anything else on them lines? We'll put it number 3 then.
Number 3.
If the suggestion was to be made to adopt a fluctuating power cost that would fluctuate every month and would somewhat follow the line of your wholesale power charges, would that be something the commission would be open to? Or they like to see stable, consistent rates throughout the year, or even possibly seasonal charges throughout the year, depending on what those wholesale power prices are?
You know, I'd like to see, how that would have an effect on the city of Madison, because as the dams are low on water, we are getting a surcharge and that from WAPA. And so that surcharge is not something that we have built into our current electrical billing. And so it's one of the things in that all of a sudden, we either have to project that, that we're gonna get them because there's no snow in the mountains. Or we fall behind in that because we're paying for power that was not power delivered, but was because of the cost of operation of the Western Area Power Association. So I'd like to see, how that would have an effect on us. And we can use the last few years that they have been applying, and there's a term for it, and I can't come up with the term. Do you remember what that is, Nate? The term they use?
There's a lot of terms.
Yeah.
They got a drought adder, yeah.
Yeah, the drought adder, that was probably what it was called, the drought adder.
Nate, could you elaborate for that fluctuating option? How common is that regionally in general?
I know at least 2 utilities that I've had contact with that have adopted it, and they never had one. What we ran in my previous location, we actually calculated it monthly. And then that was some adjustment in the rates, and it was commonly referred to as a power cost adjustment. So, I mean, the wholesale power market's oftentimes volatile now. So this was a way to, like the mayor's referencing, it was a way to capture those costs when you couldn't budget for it and predict them. It's a way to actually capture those actual costs throughout the year without doing an overall rate increase. So it gives you the ability to flow with your wholesale power costs by design, and then it's a pass-through cost. Basically, all you're doing is knocking them peaks off them price spikes throughout the year, so.
What kind of feedback did you get from residents or ratepayers on that?
Well, we ran one for 15 years. We did do some recalculations because we started including some of our capacity pricing in that, but we were in a different market. We are in SPP out here, so I don't think you do that. That wouldn't be right for the rate base, but they adjusted to it. They got used to it. They liked it when we recalculated it, and they'd actually see negative PCAs. Some months when the power prices were actually low, we go into a negative, so then it would appear as a bill credit on during those months. What we shot for was a 0 average. But with the fluctuations, you'd actually see it come below sometimes, and then you'd see it above, of course, when power prices were higher. So
How much fluctuation did you see?
we see anywhere from -1 cent per kilowatt hour, all the way up to my fuel cost per generation, when we ran for 7 days straight, that one actually went up to a +3 cents per kilowatt hour when we were recapturing those costs for the month of running on generation. So it's like I say, it's unique because those expenses were not budgeted for, but we could still collect them, for that period of time that it costs us more to operate as a business. So.
Interesting. Thank you.
One of the things we want to try to stay away from what California is proposing right now, and that's electric rates based on household income. And I thought I read through that, and I had to read through it twice just to see, and that it has not passed, but it's in controversy right now.
Yeah, it'll change the market substantially if something like that were to pass.
Yeah, I guess my quick opinion on this would be just to keep it simple. A power cost adjustment, we could have that just to be a safe haven, but, you know, Heartland Energy's rates are static, so they don't fluctuate with the markets. That's something that we mitigate the risk for the city for. And then WAPA's rates are also static throughout the year, so they're not fluctuating either. So I don't see any value in having a fluctuation or a charge that changes.
The seasonal rates is weird.
Yeah. You know, and WAPA does have that drought adder, but it's known well in advance. And most likely it's pretty predictable, so.
At least with the drought adder, it's not something that comes on and off every month. It
Right.
comes on and stays on for a while.
You should save that. That could be a commercial for Heartland.
We're recorded, so you can use that.
I'll take it as a mixed bag.
Yeah, well, you know, and following, you know, Kelly's comment, you know, we don't wanna run the cost of doing this thing up just to find out, you know, something that we may not even have an interest in doing.
And again, I think, you know, a rate study, if they see value in doing that fluctuation, that they'll let us know.
Yeah, be open to whoever in the rate study. I guess last question, would our billing system be capable of anything like this?
And they might do some custom programming, that's, I would imagine it's capable of it.
Okay.
We have other ones that certain things that turn on in certain months, that off in certain months, so we're gonna just do the same thing with that.
Okay.
Based on what Kelly said, I would kind of prefer to steer away from it, because I feel like every scenario we throw out, it just drives the cost of the rate study up. And if we're gonna throw in a scenario that is almost never going to affect us, I don't know how useful it is.
Yeah, on to number 4.
Sorry, I'm writing it fast again.
No, you're just fine. You're just fine. I just thought we kind of exhausted our thoughts on 3.
Yeah, this, I'm kind of got a big preamble disclaimer on here. All electric utilities do not share complete commonalities. Many things make Madison's electric utility unique. I will caution the commission to use care when trying to evaluate Madison's rates against neighboring electric utilities. You have a system that must be maintained with the revenue created from the collection of rates. With this stated, are there any comparisons you would like to have included in the initial draft of the rate study?
I don't know of any comparisons in that I'd like to have, but I do know in that we have some businesses that are on the outskirts, edges of some of our other utilities in the area. And because of the amount of power that they use and the fluctuations that they have equipment failures. And they brought that to their power supplier, and the power supplier just says, you're at the end of our line. It's not cost effective for us to upgrade to service you. And so some of those people in that are spending a lot each year on replacing equipment because of, you know, fluctuations in power to the equipment.
Was your initial question certain cities?
Yep, certain cities are even individual items from a city. I mean, I don't know how many distribution utilities you go into where you have 3 substations and 3 radio transmission feeds that you gotta try and maintain. But that's where you need to be careful when you start going in and you start evaluating against other utilities and cost, where you talk about competitiveness. It can be a double-edged sword because you have very unique system, and to match it against somebody that's not on the hook for multiple substations, transmission feeds and things of that nature, it's not going to be a very good comparison. And if you use that to drive your decision on whether or not to implement the findings of a rate study, it can be dangerous ground. And that's why I recommend to use caution when you start asking for comparisons as well.
The other thing is that we have very few municipals in the state of South Dakota and in our neighboring area. And gonna be very difficult to make comparisons based on industries and that are also available in those municipals. As an example, Sioux Falls has a, their own municipal, but it only services a very small part of Sioux Falls. And so within that small part, or within any of the other, I'm gonna say, wasn't there like 32 or 33? That's all the municipals there are in the state. And there's a big variety between what they have within their municipality that they have to service. A number of them only have residential. They don't have industry.
I think it'd be good to look at Vermillion and Spearfish.
Vermillion Spearfish.
And I'm not saying we base anything off of this, just
Right.
just so we know.
It's always nice to look at, but, we don't know the financial health of any other utility, so we're not gonna make our decisions off of it, but yeah, I think it's nice to look at.
I think that the more you include, the more you can have a broad net cast, but you have to have more disclaimers on there. We don't know their financial considerations or what projects they have or haven't done. If you do a few that are more in-depth, you can take off some of those disclaimers and know that utility XYZ is 10% lower than us, but they have projects that we did 10 years ago that they have to do too. So there's some advantages to going broad as well.
It's just another tool I think we could use.
Would you have them look at any investor-owned utilities or cooperatives too, or would you keep it just municipal utilities?
Again, you gotta go back to what your data pool is, and you start looking at some investor owns and the practices they're using. They're doing a lot of their answer to their investors, and they're doing it through rates to their customers, so that's gonna drive those prices up. So to include that in the data pool might actually be beneficial depending on what investor owns are doing in South Dakota. That's where I'm not familiar enough with the players in the game in the state yet. To give you a good solid answer on what I would recommend as far as comparing it to a co-op or anything else. Just the unique situation you're in here with East River and what East River owns. For the co-op customers, I'm not familiar with that either, but if you start taking away those substations that are straight distribution, they don't have transmission costs beyond their monthly bills that they're collecting through rates. Then that's gonna play into it too, as far as how that rate study looks, when you start looking forward, so.
Those can be challenging to compare anyways, because oftentimes their published rates are one thing, but they do have a power cost adjustment that's variable, and so it's hard to know exactly what that is.
Well, there are municipal utilities that distribute information on electric rates, and it's pretty much propaganda because they don't factor in like our load management credit and all that when they compare themselves to Madison, so it's not a fair representation in my mind. I guess we could get some people that our staff and start sending out information and make us look pretty rosy too.
I'm not a very good marketing person, I'll tell you that, so.
We'll get somebody on that. It won't be you, don't worry about it.
So I think for the draft is what I'm hearing then is it wouldn't hurt to look at comparison, but maybe the final one, but they might not need to be included, but it's something we can go through as we get closer and get more data populated. Is everybody okay with that or? Last question, if the mayor's okay with it.
Go for it, yes.
What other information or suggestions would you like to have input into this process?
Have you seen anything that you've liked, in the past, liked to see? Or any suggestions, maybe?
I guess,
Obviously, this group hasn't, from the last time we've done a rate study, 2013.
you got some people on here that are pretty familiar with rate studies though too, so. I guess my big thing is ultimately. My desire would be to have a tool that gives you an accurate depiction. It's not skewed one way or another. And it is truthful data that you can evaluate your financial health of your system with. And that's the big thing for me, that I think whoever does it, we go with the information we got, we talk to them. We see how thorough they are in those areas. And once we select them, then we get that data and we present it exactly what it is. Don't sugarcoat anything. This is what it is. These are the decisions we have moving forward. And then we can have options based off that are gonna be more palatable, but ultimately that's what I like to see in a rate study. Whether it's PSE, DGR, MRES. I mean, there's several different people that do them, so.
Once we get the initial study, do you anticipate that we'll update it annually?
Is what I would hope for is a finished product that will go out 5 years, and then you could actually schedule, say you got a big need for revenue on the front end, maybe you'd have 2 consecutive years with rate increases, and then it would stabilize once that need for revenue went away. Otherwise, it could show a need for an increase for 5 years, or it could show a decrease the first year and then stabilize over 4. It's all what, it's hard to say. Good answer, bad answer.
It's an answer.
Okay.
Yes, just a quick comment. We have the IIJA and the IRA coming down the chute where there might be some potential monies available for us for these capital intense projects. And so I understand that the importance and the need to get the Southeast substation addition and that transmission line done, but we probably don't want to make too many hasty decisions, at least at this time, while these programs are still getting ironed out.
What's the timeline of the programs?
That was my question. Thank you.
It's a big question. So Heartland just hired an outside firm to kind of keep a pulse on these types of programs, and so hopefully we'll have better information for you soon.
Who'd they go with?
Frontier Energy.
I actually had a call with them here on Friday, so
Well, we're paying for their service on behalf of our customers.
you are,
Or Heartland is, sorry.
okay, that's good to know.
Yeah,
Tanuj,
Tanush, yeah.
okay.
Now you guys just making up words.
That's his name.
Oh, it's an
Okay. Anything else that you see coming down the pike here?
No, I think, I dropped a lot of data on you, and it's a lot to absorb, but I think part of who I am is I want you to be as prepared as possible for any information that you're gonna have to make a decision on, and give you time to ponder on it and make sure that the decision you make is what you need to make, so that's about it. Any other general questions, I welcome. I'll give you the answers I can. If I can, I'll find them out for you, so.
Yeah, sounds good. Any other questions or comments?
Did we give you good information or?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you. And with that, do we have any public comment? Seeing no public comment, under announcements, the next regular commission meeting will be Tuesday, June 20th at 5:30 p.m. because Monday is Juneteenth. So it'll be on a Tuesday for our next meeting, June 20th. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moving.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.